Good evening, everybody. Now, over the course of my career, I've worked on a number of brands. You can see them there on the screen, and the more observant of you will have noticed there's some on there that I may get to work on again. But for me, there's something special, something unique about the Cadbury brand. And I think that's because there's more trust and more affection directed to that than any other brand that I've worked on. Which, when you look at things that I'm sure you've seen examples, so the Reader's Digest Most Trusted Brand Survey, and on the right-hand side is just a very new piece of research that Hall & Partners have done, looking at brands in all categories, and it shows that Cadbury is second only to Google amongst UK consumers in terms of the affinity and conviction that people feel around that brand, which is amazing. And it begs the question, why? Why is that? Why does Cadbury, why is it held in such high regard? Where does it come from? And I'm sure everyone in this room has heard the famous quote about reputation, that reputation arrives on foot and leaves on horseback. Well, I think that Cadbury's reputation has arrived on foot through over 100 years of responsible behaviour. And you heard Todd talk about it, and I don't think you can put your finger on any one thing that the company has done. It's about dozens of small things, pioneering developments that the company has done over many years. So I'm sure many of you know the story of the factory in the garden, building a factory away from the smog and disease of Birmingham's slums, being the first company to introduce pensions and paid leave, and curtailing cocoa sourcing agreements with Sao Tome, where intra-tribal slavery was uncovered over 101 years ago. So Cadbury was doing these things hundreds of years ago. And these are all things that are rooted in the Quaker heritage of the company. And Todd touched on it. The Cadbury family were social pioneers, and they thought of themselves as a force for good in a troubled world. And it's this values-led approach that I think has built up this bank of goodwill and trust that Cadbury enjoys today. And what most people don't realise is, or what I don't think is recognised enough, is the commercial benefit that you get from that. And I'm going to illustrate this in a way that's probably a bit unusual, but for me is the most powerful demonstration of the commercial value of this. And that's when our reputation was tested in the furnace of a crisis. This was something that happened just 8 weeks after I joined the company in April 2006, when we were faced with the Salmonella recall. And just after this news had broken, we conducted some consumer focus groups. And in these groups, one member of the group started casting aspersions on how Cadbury had behaved. And I saw something that I've never seen in a consumer group before. The other 7 consumers turned on this person and launched into a really strong defence of Cadbury, saying, you know, they would never do that. I've never seen anything like that before, and to be honest, I'm not sure I ever will again. Now, obviously, the whole Salmonella thing was a massive thing for us, but I think if you fast forward 3 years and the Cadbury brand is in the rudest of health, and as a business, we've just had one of our best years ever, with UK revenues growing by 10%. And I think if you think about that situation, how many other brands could have ever recovered from a crisis like that? And how many could have recovered so quickly and so strongly? And that, for me, is one of the strongest illustrations of the power, the commercial advantage you get when you behave responsibly and sustainably. And as you heard Todd talk, we have this long heritage of behaving in that way, doing good and believing that doing good is good for business. But probably what we've not done until recently is to shout from the rooftops about that. But the context has changed. We all know, and many people referred to it in the video, that the consumers, and therefore our customers, now demand to know what's behind a company or a product. The demand for transparency through the supply chain is increasing, and sustainability has become a commercial issue affecting the cost and availability of raw materials. And a good example of this is cocoa, and Todd referenced this. In Ghana, where we source most of our cocoa, the average age of a cocoa farmer has increased to over 50 years old. The young generation of Ghanaians just don't want to do that. And yields are only 40% of what they can be. So you can see there that, if it's not addressed, could be a commercial issue as well as a sustainability and responsibility issue. So with this in mind, we established the pioneering Cadbury Cocoa Partnership in 2008. And this is a programme that will be investing over £45 million over the next 10 years. And it's designed to support the cocoa communities in Africa, India, Indonesia, and the Caribbean, as well as helping to ensure the sustainable supply of our most important ingredient. And this money is used to fund on-the-ground agricultural education to help farmers improve those yields, to help improve their income, but also to help ensure continuity of supply. And it's also invested in general education to improve the quality of life in the cocoa growing communities. Now, in the past, we would probably have been content to make this move quietly behind the scenes. But nowadays, as we said, consumers want to know more. So with this in mind, we decided to work with the Fair Trade Foundation to work with what we believe is the most well-known ethical brand, and to use this to publicly signal our commitment to the cocoa communities. With Cadbury Dairy Milk going fair trade, we're providing mainstream consumers, and I think that's really important that it's mainstream, with an easy and affordable option. Their favourite chocolate with the same taste and great value, but with added ethics. And in keeping with the desire to know more, we've decided to invest heavily in communicating the fair trade accreditation to our consumers. However, the challenge was, how do we do this in a way that's accessible to Joe Public, as opposed to just the ethical elite? And how do we do it in a way that's frankly not too self-congratulatory? We wanted to help take the fair trade, take fair trade into the mainstream. And as you would expect from a brand that brought you the Drummond Gorilla, we wanted to do this in a surprising and entertaining way. We're the brand behind Glass and a Half Full Productions, and we see ourselves as purveyors of joy. We look to entertain, reward, and then inform. So just like the rest of the Glass and a Half Full campaigns, the Fair Trade campaign aimed first and foremost to make you smile, and this time to do it Ghanaian style. The idea that we came up with was to celebrate Ghana as the capital of joy. And this became a truly authentic Ghanaian production that showcased the talents of Ghanaian craftsmen, artists, musicians and dancers, with a local cast of over 350 people. And it was more than an ad. You could see there, we launched a record, Glass and a Half Full Records, and a music video, with the proceeds raised going to cocoa growing communities. The music track was called Zingalo, which means enjoy it. And there's a full 4-minute version of the music video on YouTube. And we used this as the ad campaign that we showed on TV. So if we could run VT. So that was the TV ad. And this was accompanied by press ads and posters that announced the link between Cadbury and Fair Trade in a more explicit way. And since its launch in August, 76% of UK adults are now aware that Cadbury Dairy Milk is fair trade. The campaign was highly salient, with 79% of people saying that it stood out as different from other advertising, compared to an average of 49%. We achieved 250,000 views on YouTube, 17,000 Facebook fans, 3,000 blog visits a week. So this was something that was really breaking into mainstream culture. And the Zingalo music track broke into the iTunes download chart. So far so good. Fair Trade Cadbury Dairy Milk is an activity that is doing good, but also doing good for business, and not just for Cadbury. And there's more to come. We've got some fantastic activity planned for Fair Trade Fortnight, which we'll see over the coming weeks, so watch this space. So, in summary, I think there are, for me, 5 key principles for successful sustainable marketing. And the first is to remember that consumers are increasingly looking for brands that they trust and like. And this is how brands started, but I think as a group, we've probably as marketers lost sight of that. Whereas now, more than ever, people want to know about the company behind the brand. Which I think leads on to the second point, and I think that is, there's an imperative to act with authenticity and integrity. Sustainable marketing has to be built on the foundation of company behaviour. So it's about acting responsibly first and then telling people about it. If you go straight to telling them about it, I think they'll smell it a mile off. And to do this, I think you need to understand your footprint, to understand the impact that you have on communities, and to identify the right issues and to focus where it will have the greatest impact. And in doing this, it's important to find the sweet spot between doing good and doing something that is good for business. And hopefully from the example I've shown, you can see that's absolutely the case for us. And I think it's this more than anything else that will make it sustainable in the eyes of shareholders. And finally, I think it's important to remember that consumers are bombarded by thousands of messages every day. And just because we have something to say doesn't mean they have time or the inclination to listen. So it's important to communicate your sustainable marketing messages in an engaging and entertaining way to make an impact beyond the passionate few. And I think for me the final ingredient is, Todd talked about values, I talked about values, and my reflection would be I don't actually think there's such a thing as values in a company. It's about people and it's about leadership. And I think it's really important that we all believe in what we're doing, and I think the tone gets set at the very top, and I'm sure you will have sensed from Todd as the leader of our organisation a heartfelt passion for this, and I think that's a critical part of this as well. So thank you very much.